Welcome to episode 14 of the Matlock podcast, Game Day.
In this week's episode, as the Slamm'd class action comes to trial, Olympia makes a rash decision with her jury selection, while her team look to persuade a key witness to testify. Meanwhile, Madeline's sister finds out about her plan to expose Jacobson Moore, but will her home truths cause a rethink, or are the Kingstons determined to see things through to the end?
You have 2 types of sage. Tell me you eat out of that garden every night.
Oh, yeah, we do. We plop right down in the dirt and pop tomatoes.
Good evening, Ian. How are things?
Not so bad now. Have I got some tomatoes to pop?
Okay, what's your favourite type of sage? Sage Stallone? Sage Software?
The one that Simon and Garfunkel used to sing about.
Right, okay. What was that?
You know,
Sage over troubled water?
No, they've got a song about herbs.
Have they? Herbs?
I do like Bitsy.
Bitsy is lovely. I should say that you were correct. I don't often say it.
No, never.
As you know,
this is the first you probably edit this out again.
It takes a big man to admit when they're wrong. I am not wrong, however. You said, or you suggested that Madeline was copying Bitsy or acting like her. And yes, that is the case. Although, I think I said at the time, it's not quite as twee, it's not quite as saccharine. She's taking some of the elements, aspects of her,
stories and
so
things like that.
You were partial. We'll call it a draw.
Oh, okay.
Bitsy is brilliant. I think I was going to say the voice of reason, and I'll stick to that because she's the voice of us.
She's saying what we've been saying, yeah.
Yeah, lots of the things that we have said, and it's interesting as well, some of the developments we'll probably discuss in this episode are developments that we also suggested. So yeah. I don't know, maybe are they listening and taking note? We're only a week behind. I think they can do this. This is a live recording, isn't it?
For them. For the show, yes.
For Matlock, yes. So maybe they're just taking notes and then working our thoughts into their...
Or maybe they've got access to our archive in advance.
Oh.
But the good thing is that the show is not ignoring... Like the risk, I think, with the show would have been if Madeline had been painted as a flawless Avenger and... correct in everything, and it's not doing that, so this is encouraging.
It certainly is. Yes, as we have said, there are aspects of her character which are very troublesome, and it would be very easy and very typical of a TV show to ignore that or play it down, but they are addressed, and they are addressed through, as I say, the voice of reason, Bitsy, in this episode, certainly.
You would imagine that's part of the package that they sold to Kathy Bates when she signed on, was that this was a bit more of a nuanced character than perhaps you would expect in a show.
It's certainly not. I mean, you've not watched the original Matlock.
No.
That show would never have taken these darker turns.
Questioned itself in that way, yeah. Okay, before we get into the details of this week's episode, let's talk about social media. You can find us at Colombo Podcast on all the major social networks, Blue Sky, Facebook, X, Instagram. You can find show notes at colombopodcast.com, and every episode is available 1 week early on our YouTube channel, Colombo Podcast Productions.
Are you okay for me to crack on?
All set. In the recap, we're reminded about the overarching concept, about Bitsy's arrival, Julian's movements being recorded, the Slamm'd class action, and its stakes for Olympia, Violet's death and the possibility of charges hanging over Kennedy, Billy and Simone's workplace romance, and the reason Bitsy came to New York.
We begin this week with a flashback thesis from Edwin showing Shae as a deep throater, tipping off a nervous Julian.
This was Olympia's problem all along.
About the Brexit documents that have been accidentally sent and presented in court, which are going to cost, or will cost, Jacobson Moore millions in fees.
Yes, I mean, we should say this is initially presented without context, so we are led to believe it may actually be a flashback.
Yeah. I think we see a bit of sexual tension.
Well, this is in Edwin's presentation of it, I suppose, but yes, Julian goes to the documents room and fakes senior signature, and this is where we get the revelation that we were questioning earlier. I think you quite often were going, why does it matter who signed for this document? It's who has signed to remove it from the documents.
Makes more sense now.
Store, yes.
And again, we are reminded that senior, at this point, is in Australia, out the country, therefore cannot be involved, which makes me believe that, unless it's the double bluff, who knows?
Yeah. We see Julian return to the underground garage, at which point Edwin is interrupted.
By who?
Madeline, who thinks it's gone a bit too much all the president's men.
And also because she is irritated with Bitsy, and she snipes at him that they don't even know what the documents contain. So he's this elaborate theory, but she's on edge.
Yeah, the fact that they don't know what the document is the biggest red flag here, that they don't know what they're really doing.
Mm-hmm.
They've come up with all these complicated plans to integrate her into Jacobson Moor, but they don't know what they're looking for or where it is, or even if it exists. This whole thing could be a fantasy. I mean, Reddit's not exactly known for only containing factual information.
Indeed. She's also annoyed at Bitsy's constant baking, but focuses on the data from Julian's keycard, and she acknowledges that she has to find out where he went after taking the documents from the document room, and she suggests, I think, that his motive, because that's a point as well, why is he doing this?
Yeah, and they don't have any proof for the motive.
They think that maybe he was doing it to curry favour with his father. We know that relationship is quite fractious.
Yeah, and they're also got this fact that he got $500,000 from somewhere to pay a deposit on the fancy brownstone.
They are then interrupted by Hurricane Bitsy, who is overjoyed to have found that they have 2 types of sage, as we heard at the top of the podcast, before removing muffins from the oven. Now, that is something we've seen Madeline do as well. So she presented muffins in one of the earlier episodes. And all these little things.
It's probably borrowed, yeah.
Yeah. Nice little nod back to this.
Bitsy at this point calls out the devil's scheme.
What's that?
Farm to table.
Is that a devil's... what is that? So farm to table sounds like you're cutting out the middleman. You're going straight from the farm.
It's the middleman's scheme. He takes from the farm and delivers to you when you could just get direct from the farm.
Yeah, see, I think that's worded wrongly then, because farm to table sounds like it's directly.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Anyhow, she then remarks, again, as we've sort of discussed before, she remarks on the fact that they have uprooted Alfie to move to New York, and is told that it was his idea.
She says that's also what he told her, but he clammed up when it got to specifics.
She is very perceptive, isn't she? I really like her.
Yes, she tells a story about butterscotch, which we heard Madeline say in the first episode.
Yes.
Literally word for word.
Mm-hmm. That's why I had to acknowledge that you may have been as equally right as myself.
So when Madeline tells her that she's heard this story before, Bitsy says she never knows when she's actually listening to her.
I mean, she obviously grinds Madeline's gears, but when she leaves, Edwin advises her to simply use her as research, and that Madeline Matlock doesn't exist without her. So this is a confirmation that she is taking on some of the background and characteristics of her sister.
I quite enjoyed what Bitsy said she was off to do.
What was that?
She's away to liberate wild peppermint from the neighbour's garden. She's stealing herbs from the neighbour.
However, as the title is displayed, Madeline breathes and points out that Matlock has substance, while her sister is a grown woman called Elizabeth who likes to be called Itsy Bitsy.
Edwin promises to keep Bitsy occupied and out of their dungeon office area with the corkboard and the madness.
Serial killer room, yeah.
Since she can't keep a secret, and if she finds out, the game is up.
Meanwhile, Sarah doesn't help Olympia's stress levels by pointing out how much she has riding on this Slamm'd case that starts that very day.
The 3 of them, Olympia, Billy and Sarah, they're all up to high-do at this point, and Julian stops by to offer good luck with the jury selection.
It's playful good luck.
Yeah, well, he points out that as a human being, he does wish her good luck, but as her competitor and as the person who's going to win the partner race, he does not. And she points out that he always takes a joke too far.
She then receives a text from a fly that needs swatting, and we catch up with said fly moments later.
Yeah, it's an upset Shae who realises, or who has found out, that Olympia has bypassed her to hire external jury consultants on Elijah's recommendation.
Who are they?
Oh, Hoddit and Doddit. I'm not sure what their actual names are.
Well, the Glenroy pair, I think they are.
Shae wants to clear the air with Olympia, but Olympia is not interested in assuaging any of her guilt.
We also find out there's confusion over whether the Glenroys are siblings or partners.
Yeah, that joke gets done a couple of times, and then, they leave it.
They are a bit creepy.
Well, just they could be both. Depends how far south they come from.
Or north in this country.
Well, in this country.
Or west. Mainly
Talk
west.
about taking a joke too far. Okay. Let's just carry on.
So at this point, we cut between the meeting room and the courtroom.
Yes, so the lead plaintiff has shown up. He's wheelchair bound and he's getting coaching from the jury consultants.
And we see in the court this selection process take place.
I gotta admit, I got some serious game day nerves. Worse than my football days.
I get it. This is 2 years of your life. But you're in such a great place now, Tucker.
Which we need you to hide. You are the face of this lawsuit, and court is theater. Curtain goes up when jury selection begins.
Your pain needs to stand in for the entire class. That's why you're the named plaintiff. So even if something's hilarious, no laughing.
Small smiles are fine.
Which is why I specifically said no laughing, not no smiles.
I'm getting brother, sister.
Getting married but unhappy.
I'm getting exhausted.
We need to reject anyone who leans libertarian from our panel. Anyone who might blame the person over the product.
We'd like to dismiss juror number 9.
Subgroups to dismiss, including anti-vaxxers, end-of-day preppers, anyone liking social media posts with the word militia.
We'd like to dismiss her, yes.
And anyone who's ever been sued, either at work or at home.
We'd like to dismiss juror 23, and thank you so much for your service.
We'll be researching as you go. Remember, one bad juror can poison the whole well.
My last challenge.
Get rid of 31.
Agreed. 32 looks good. College-age daughter?
Counselor?
Yes, we'd like to dismiss 31.
All right. Juror 31, you may go. And since both parties are out of challenges, I will seat Juror 32. Congratulations on completing jury selection. We will begin opening statements after lunch.
Has Shae been there the whole time?
The whole time.
Minty assignment for today?
Yeah.
Keep her away from me.
So we catch up with Sarah doing just that in the corridors of Jacobson Moor as she ignores Shae's plaintiff urges to let her speak to Olympia.
How does she do that?
She's got her headphones in listening to one of her classical novels.
Pride and Prejudice, I think it is.
And flat out refuses to relay any messages.
Yeah, she admits that she is very susceptible and she is very persuasive, so she doesn't want to get involved.
She's just blocking her out.
And so she approaches the equally uninterested Madeline, who just then receives a text from Edwin asking if she has found where Julian took the documents.
That's such a risky text to send her.
You think so?
Like if her phone's sitting out somewhere and someone sees it, or if she's in the middle of a meeting.
I don't know about you, but my phone doesn't display...
Mine does.
You can turn that off.
I know, I don't need to.
Well, if she's undercover, I'm sure she will have.
Maybe she'll have. But it's still, so there's no reason for him to ask her that. Like, just trust her to do what she's doing. She'll let you know when something happens.
Yeah, that's constant harassment at work. What have you discovered? If she has discovered, you'll be the first to know.
Exactly. And she could be in a tricky situation.
However, she takes quite a stern tone and explains it's about Olympia's class action, which seems to get her attention.
I think Madeline has a professional, professionalism?
Obligation, she has, yeah.
Back in court, we hear the opening remarks of both sides kind of interspersed with one another.
Yeah, we've got the defence counsel, her name's Clara, I believe. They're addressing the jury with claims of corporate negligence and assurances of perfectly legal marketing strategies. Now, at this point, Olympia introduces Tucker. What's his backstory?
So he was a college football star, I suppose, or he was a high school star who was given a scholarship to go and play, I think, at Alabama, they said, at college, which is one of the top college football programs.
And what happened to him?
He drank a can of Slamm'd, and the next thing he knew, he was paralysed because he jumped out of a car.
Now, we don't really have this whole sort of sporting scholarship set up in the UK.
Nobody cares about college sports in the UK.
This, to me, sounds like a very good reason why jocks shouldn't get necessarily promoted into places above their ability. See, this guy sounds like an idiot. He took one can of Slamm'd and he's thrown himself out of a car.
The problem is, though, that these sports programs bring in money for the universities, which is why it makes sense for them to do it this way.
Mm-hmm. But the amount, I mean, again, I'm not sure if it's just TV and movies and other sort of literature and what have you, but the amount of stories I've read about, these great sports stars who can barely read and they're having like their tutors doing all the work for them because they're a benefit to the institution. They shouldn't really be there.
Yeah, it happens in politics as well.
It certainly does. Anyhow, Clara rightly notes. See, this is the thing, and maybe I'll get into it right now. I despise the whole libertarian movement, and I had exposure to it from someone who I used to work with many years ago. Quite quaint now, actually, because back then you had this Ron Paul or John Paul or Ron Jeremy, whatever his name was. He was a libertarian mouthpiece, and his son as well. But it was so right wing, it was absolute nonsense. But this guy was quite infatuated with him and thought, these Ayn Rand and all this muck. And then that seemed really quite extreme.
Yep.
But these days it's
mainstream.
Mainstream. It's not that you'd be. In fact, if he was in charge, the world would probably be a safer and better place. And that's saying something because he was an idiot. However, Clara rightly notes, and this is, where I've got are contradictions, because she says that they sold millions of cans of this Slamm'd, and only one person has thrown himself out a car. So to me, obviously, that sounds like he's just an idiot.
Yeah, but the way that she's presenting that is very specific. So we don't have all the information. So one guy's thrown himself out of a car, but there might be hundreds of other similar events that aren't throwing yourself out of a car. So she's just narrowing it down to the very individual case. Whereas you might want to consider the fact that, okay, he's the only one that threw himself out of a car, but here are 300 other people who were also injured or harmed in other ways.
I think your jury would have to know that, because you take any alcohol, you take a whiskey or a vodka, you might have one person doing something serious, but every week you'll have people getting themselves intoxicated and into fights and falling down and injury. The hospitals, certainly in Scotland and Glasgow, of a Saturday night will be full of people with drink-related injuries, being assaulted because of alcohol. So
I think we need more information. We don't know what the law is that they are accused of contravening. Yeah.
In any case, Olympia counters Clara's claim that his choice was removed. He wanted to get a little bit drunk, but not so drunk.
That just seems like poor judgment.
And she responds that this individual's response. Again, this is where I've got an issue, because I'm very, very anti the libertarian.
You mean you keep saying this, but you're about to then say that there should be individual responsibility?
No, I'm not. Libertarians think there should be very light touch or hardly any regulation. Mm-hmm. And when it's, for example, it could be McDonald's or the fast food chains doing their advertising campaigns, and the libertarian would say, let them do what they want, and the market will determine what's best, and you don't have the power to fight against that. I don't think this drink should have been brought to the market. I think there should have been regulations. I have issues with the lack of control with this nonsense, this 5 and 1 and 5 times as fast and all that. Yeah, that should not, and I don't think in reality it ever would be. So there should be strict controls over how you sell the alcohol. But in this case, you've got one idiot. So too bad. You don't take peanuts off the market if somebody eats a peanut and kills himself.
He's only the lead plaintiff. There's a lot of others.
I want to find out. I would need to find out more what happened. Is this just kids being drunk? Because that's what happens with any, what do you do with vodka? Vodka Red Bull. I'm sure there will be, as I said before. I'm reiterating my same point here, but I'd bring the drink off the market before it gets to this stage. If they were allowed to sell it, then that's...
Yeah, I think there can only be a limited amount of sympathy. They're drinking, they know there's alcohol, they're drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
Anytime you drink alcohol, it can have an effect you don't expect. Everyone knows that if you're not eating, or if it's mixing with medication you've taken and you didn't realise. And there's lots of reasons, so you would always know... If you're having a drink, there's a possibility you might do something stupid.
It just reminds me of Bill Hicks as well. See, this is the type of scare tactics that you have with drugs. The trope of the guy took the LSD for the first time and thought he could fly and jumped off a window. He says, no, that's not. I mean, these are the scare stories you heard. Same back in the day with marijuana, how it affects you. People don't, as Bill Hicks said, if you think you can fly, you don't see ducks taking an elevator. You would fly from the ground. Who goes up to the top? Anyway, it's this type of... Olympia's portraying it in that way. This drink was so evil. It's only, a bit of alcohol here.
Yeah. Her opening argument about the names of the flavours being indicative of them wanting you to get too drunk is absurd, because they're just using colloquial terms for drink.
I mean, as we find out, there are more sinister strategies that the company's been using, which I think is horrendous, and rightly they should be prevented from doing that. But just one person being an arse, I wouldn't base my case on him.
And the whole thing took his choices away as nonsense.
Yeah.
Anyway, they finish, and Olympia is asked if she wants to call her first witness, but before she can, Madeline shows up asking the judge to give them a little time.
Yeah, she whispers to her that Juror 32 has a problematic blog that could sink their case, which was missed by the weirdo pair of brother, sister, husband, wife, but...
Sister, wife?
Yep, but discovered by Shae.
Yeah, he also posts on Reddit on libertarian issues, indicating that he has lied in his jury questionnaire.
So with the jury dismissed, Clara tells the judge that she can't believe Olympia wants to dismiss this juror after the opening statements, but she responds by producing his libertarian nonsense, siding with the big corporations from the Reddit board, and that he lied about his beliefs to get on the jury.
The judge wants to hear directly from Juror 32, and Shae warns Olympia not to antagonise him, as he may remain part of the panel.
But he does a good enough job of making the judge believe that he has changed his views and he is therefore allowed to remain on the jury.
That's a disaster for Olympia and her case.
Yeah.
Although she just needs a majority, right? It's a civil case.
I don't know how it works over there.
Anyway, back at Jacobson Moore, an apologetic Elijah offers Olympia some pastrami to make up for his defective jury consultants. Olympia admits that although it was Elijah's recommendation and they are terrible, it was really her fault because she should just have used Shae all along.
But she does get him to agree to be her second chair to help with the witness, because I think as a man he might be more empathetic. She's obviously a bit of an incel as well.
Juror 32 is into men's rights,
yes,
apparently, and the manosphere. Oh, it's so homoerotic, isn't it? Like, why do these guys... Oh, anyway, moving on.
Also, but do you think that this is a bit dodgy from Olympia and Elijah? He is going to be part of the decision-making panel on the partnership. He really shouldn't be getting involved in this.
Well, yeah, it doesn't come
Julian,
up,
Julian, I wouldn't be happy if it was him.
No, and I think, it doesn't get mentioned, as you say, in this episode, but yeah, good point.
Meanwhile, in the U3 office, Sarah is annoyed that Billy won't tell her who he is seeing, despite him receiving numerous giggle-worthy texts.
And we know that he knows. We know that she knows from last week's episode.
Yes.
He tries to change the subject.
He turns the tables.
Yes, because she's got this nonsense with Kira, who she can't quit.
Yes, she refuses to let go of her under the pretense of maybe being open about being open, and also the fact that she has lots of inside business information, such as Olympia's first office being up for grabs.
However, Billy has also obtained this information from another source.
Yeah, he holds up his own application, which he found out through Belvin. At this point, I noted here...
Marbles started rolling.
Yep. Belvin is the Reddit leaker. All made sense. She has got access to all the documents. She sees and listens. She knows everything that's going on. She seems like a decent person. Gruff exterior, but not a bad person. I think I could be completely wrong. I think the leaker will be someone we know. From an audience point of view, they won't just be some random. It would have to be someone a character we've been aware of.
During the week when you were watching this, you texted me and said it's Belvin, and I thought you meant that she was maybe an opioid addict who was hiding the documents to help maintain access to her.
No, I didn't explain my thinking.
Yeah, no.
Anyway.
Yeah, they agree not to spread the word any further, though it's quite sad, I think, that they're both trying to get out of one another's way here. It kind of shows that their relationship's broken down a certain way.
But also, an office of your own.
Yeah, quite good. And I suppose whoever's left behind might think that they're getting the better deal.
Anyway, at this point, Billy receives a text telling him to check inside his notebook.
Which suggests he's not been looking at his notebook for quite some time. But anyway, he does, and there's a post-it which is marked up, Closet 230.
Which he sharply actions.
In the corridor, we find Madeline following this path of rooms that Julian apparently went to with the Brexit document, which seems to me like a complete waste of time, and I don't understand the purpose.
What do you mean?
So she's got this record from his pass, showing he went to this room and then this room and then this room 15 years ago.
Following the trail, so she's trying to find out, like, after he signed out the document.
What is it she's expecting to find?
I suppose the end, or
it's not the document's still going to be there.
No, but if it
could easily just be someone's office that he went to, or his office, or
well, I think any good detective has to follow the money,
follow the lead that they have,
follow the trail. Yeah, see where they've been going. It
seems a bit of a desperate move.
No, but anyway. We find out there are pieces of evidence here that would help.
Will they? I don't agree with that, but we'll see.
Okay.
Anyway, she gets a series of urgent texts from a distressed Bitsy.
Yeah, who can't find the cream tartar.
Cream of tartar.
Cream of tartar in her pantry.
Well, she wants her cakes to rise, doesn't she? She
also has some herb issues, but is hung up on when Olympia walks over and, in a Faulty Towers move, she comes up with a convoluted lie about Alfie having a sore tummy, and then agreeing that she will use the company car to get him home. All of this is
She's going to get exposed over this. At some point, Olympia's going to say which car went for Alfie that time, and it's going to be what car, who went for a car. Nobody.
All Olympia saw was her on her phone.
It could be anything.
And she's not expecting...
She's panicked.
She could just say, no, it's nothing, and put the phone away. Olympia's not going to press it. It's not her business.
Yeah. It's my sister.
Yeah.
Shouldn't mean she's here.
Exactly. This is what happens when you watch Faulty Towers. This one lie leads to another and it becomes a farce.
Yes.
Get yourself into all sorts of situations.
Yep. Meanwhile, in the closet.
Yeah, we see Billy and Simone enjoying each other.
Yeah.
Billy's a lucky
I still don't trust her.
Of course
I feel
not.
like she's manipulating him
When
for
you're
her
that
own
hot,
benefit.
when you're that hot, trust is not a requirement.
They discussed the fact that admitting to Sarah that they were seeing one another would ruin things.
Yeah, which he agrees to this, but then drops in a hint about a potential office move. Now, is he being really naive, or is he offering this as a means of ingratiating himself, keeping him...
I don't think he's thinking it through here.
Okay.
Yeah. She says that Sarah would insert herself, and he doesn't want anything to stop him inserting himself. So.
No, quite right.
In the meeting room, Shae is working up a new profile on Juror 32, and Olympia wants ideas to gain his sympathy. So obviously she's bitten the bullet here and agreed to work with Shae.
Yeah, I think Elijah, he is there. The whole team's there.
Yeah. Madeline suggests that they put Kennedy on the stand, which alarms Sarah. And as we pointed out last week, I think, on the podcast, unless you took it out, Kennedy used the product in the way it was supposed to be used and it killed someone. So that is not problematic for them. It's helpful for them and they should be using this as evidence.
Yeah.
Billy suggests that had the product been properly labelled, Kennedy wouldn't have brought it to the sorority. I would question that. Who checks the labels?
No one. In fact, at that age with alcohol...
Just give me the shiniest can or whatever I normally have.
Yeah, the labelling would not... I mean, it's the worst labelling, the more sinister the labelling or extreme the labelling would be. This will get you absolutely blackout drunk. I'm having some of that.
Yes, please. That's what I want. Forget all my stress. Anyway, the suggestion is that Kennedy might help because Juror 32 has a daughter her age.
So we're in the courtroom. Firstly, Olympia has her biophysicist witness on the stand explaining why the high level of alcohol and caffeine would cause a problem.
We should say, sorry, while she's doing this, she sent the others to try and get Kennedy to agree to testify.
Clara, however, gives her a can and she agrees that the ingredients are on it, but she notes not the quantities.
Quite important.
Yeah, but this is answered by the head of compliance at Slamm'd, who points out that they're not obliged to do this, but they do follow the letter of the law. So, again, everything is quite above board here.
He does come out very disingenuous when he says that their entire goal is to maintain the safety of their drinkers.
Yeah.
I'm not buying that one.
Just like gambling companies are, their main goal is to try and keep the money in the pockets of their customers as well.
He says that if you put too much fine print, they won't read it, so we just focus on the amount of alcohol.
And then, he makes them laugh by saying that they don't list the quantity of vitamin C, but they've never been taken to court about that in the past.
It's not funny. Why is that?
Don't know, they thought it was.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's mocking... or he's easily dismissed their point.
Tucker, at this point, the lead plaintiff, notes that Juror 32 is absolutely loving the testimony, but Elijah tries to reassure him somewhat.
Yes, by saying that they have a potential witness that may help. In the corridor,
Madeline continues her search while leaving a message for Olympia saying that Kennedy won't testify unless she can get immunity from charge. How is Kennedy in any position to make demands?
Because they want her. That's why she's in a position.
They can't get her immunity from charges. They don't work for the DA.
No, but as we see, they've got influence with the DA.
It seems a bold position for Kennedy to take.
She's in a very, she's in a vulnerable position. This is the only thing she has. In any case, Madeline arrives at office 2199 just as Alfie texts...
Alfie not appearing in this episode for reasons of finance, we assume.
Or he's doing exams or something like that. To ask if she has found out where Julian went, and she then opens the door to find out...
This is hilarious. This, for me, might be the funniest moment. It says this completely unmarked door, secret, and they open the door and it's a shredding facility.
A very busy shredding facility.
We've seen other shredding facilities previously.
Well, they just brought in shredding machines to a meeting room before, because it was in a glass.
Yes.
Yeah, I've noted here. Surely this would be called the shredding room.
You would have a sign or something?
Yes, it wouldn't just be a normal office.
It's almost like one of these Bond movies where they've got on the front of it's a shredding, but when you go behind it, they're making nuclear bombs.
Yeah.
There's a guy, senior stroking his cat in the back.
This causes another theory flashback where she sees Julian destroying the evidence on the advice of Shae.
I quite enjoyed these little fantasy flashbacks. In the Kingston mansion, Edwin is shocked at this revelation, but not as shocked as Madeline is when she enters her Wall of Madness room to find Bitsy examining the details.
She wants her to remain calm, but Bitsy rightly thinks she is a psycho conman, just like her ex Bert, who was selling people non-existent puppies from his man cave just before her phone rings.
You cannot tell her anything.
I know, because this is a crime and you could go to jail.
Nobody's going to jail. I'm putting together evidence, and when I have enough, I send it to the New York Times and let them take it from there.
And if you get caught before then?
Nobody's going to press charges against a little old lady.
Oh, the little old con man. And you are no better than Bert.
Don't take the bait. Don't take the bait.
Bert took innocent people's money and slept with call girls. I'm trying to right a wrong.
A web of lies is a web of lies. And someone's going to get caught in the middle of it, and my guess is Alfie.
This happens to be important to Alfie.
He's just a kid. He didn't get to choose.
And you don't get to weigh in on my family. So don't go there again.
I made a mistake.
A mistake is forgetting your keys. I didn't know where my little girl was for a week.
Ellie was safe. She told me not to call. She said she just wanted to regroup after rehab.
Yeah, well, kids don't get to choose, like you said.
She was 19. I did my very best to help Madeline. I loved her too. And none of this is gonna bring Ellie back.
I know that. But the people responsible have to answer for it. Until you know what it feels like to bury a child, I don't need your opinion.
Before we discuss the clip there, we should say that was Cindy Shapiro on the phone.
Yes, it was. Let's go, Betsy. This is fantastic.
Everything we've been saying, all our concerns, all our problems with Madeline's approach, her attitude, the potential grief and problems that she could cause. Everything we've been saying has been summed up here by we've literally called Madeline a psycho before.
We have, and a villain.
A villain, yes.
Yeah. Of course, Betsy doesn't know that she's had people's lives ruined along the way.
Oh yeah, I mean, if she knew exactly how she's been manipulating people.
Yeah.
I'd have to say Betsy is a very perceptive and intelligent person.
Yes, she's clearly on the ball.
Understands what's going on.
Incisive. In the ADA's office, Olympia tries to persuade Park to drop the case against Kennedy, but learns that Lydia Reed, the mother of Violet, who died in last week's episode, is pushing for this prosecution. Nothing to do with her, but pushing for this prosecution, and his office owes her a debt, which he distinguishes from a favour.
Yes, I mean, a debt's something that will be called in. And we find out here, you say it's nothing to do with her, but we find out that she is a very powerful benefactor to his office and involved in the
Decisions
politics.
to prosecute should be based on, is there evidence of a crime having been committed? Not, does the mother want us to prosecute?
I think very naive. I think if you've got power, you can be very persuasive if you need things done. And yeah, that's how it operates.
But if there's not any evidence, it's pointless. They're just going to end up not getting a conviction. Well, I suppose that's not always the case. Back in the U3 office, Billy is told by Sarah that Lydia is Violet's mother, who owns half of the real estate in NY and has a lot of political power.
So that's
so
what I'm talking
she's a
about.
slum landlord.
Yes. Even an exaggeration, if you own a vast quantity of New York property.
Yeah, quite wealthy.
Very wealthy, I would suggest.
Bit of a portfolio. Sarah notes that Simone has applied for the office and accuses Billy of tipping her off.
He admits this.
Well, first of all, she admits that she knows about them.
Yeah, he tries to play dumb at first, but gives up and admits he is seeing her, but kept it from Sarah as he knows they don't like each other and doesn't want her. And he quotes Simone here, poisoning the well.
Sarah says that the well is already full of toxic sludge and he deserves someone who doesn't try to steal an office from him.
So I think this was in the corridor they were talking, and as they enter their office, there's a revelation that...
Well, they ask Madeline whether she agrees, or Sarah asks Madeline if she agrees, and she's more interested in learning about this renovation, because they learn that this office of Olympia's is not renovated.
Yes, so it was 7 years prior the work was done, and she immediately texts the news to Edwin and asks if the shredder room was in the same place.
How's he going to know? Where's he getting this information? This is my big question in this episode. Is this online? Someone they've put their entire remodel?
I think so, yeah. You'll have to submit... Yes, there'll be blueprints. That'll be submitted to the council, the planning department. Will have all these documents that you can access.
Okay. But if they've got access to that, why does she need to walk around the rooms in the first place? Just find out what they were remodelled to now. And she didn't know it was remodelled.
No.
Anyway, Sarah thinks that she deserves the office and Olympia would want her to have it, but Olympia arrives and says she doesn't care about her old office and says the ADA is going to drop the charges if Lydia Reed backs off. There's an awful lot of quid pro quo going on here.
Again, that's politics. You scratch my balls, I back. Anyhow, Madeline is tasked with speaking to Lydia, while Olympia and the twosome will speak with Kennedy and her father.
Which we now find them doing in a meeting room where Kennedy says that she didn't mean for any of this to happen. She just wanted Zoe to get very drunk and embarrass herself and had no idea that Slamm'd would kill anybody.
So, yeah, that's just the thing. So she admits to wanting her to get drunk. So that is spiking her drink with alcohol.
Yeah. I think the idea was that Zoe would drink something that was stronger than she knew it was going to be.
So I'm not sure if it's a grey area or not. If someone asks me for a drink and I give them a treble or a quadruple when they're expecting a single, they've not asked, and I get someone really, really drunk, I mean, that's illegal, no?
It depends what your motive is, I suppose. But then in some cases, people go to them because they're free pour, and you get more.
Yeah, but you know that. But that's what I'm saying. If someone doesn't know that, they say, give me a vodka, and I give them.
I mean, you can't tell me that you never went to a bar and bought someone a double when they asked for a single because you thought it'd be good to get them more drunk. Maybe you can.
If that's what you were doing, then fair enough.
I'm not saying that I personally did this, but this was something that I'm pretty aware happened a lot.
All right.
Back in the 90s.
Okay. We'll move on.
Olympia wants to know when Kennedy first heard about this drink.
Yeah, she tells them it was in her senior year at high school. No.
Yes.
Okay.
High school. And that's an important point.
Yes. And got an invite to a warehouse party where the drink was handed out for free.
This was an invite that she received via Snapchat, which is a modern technology that you may not be aware of.
Do we use Snapchat?
Yeah.
No, okay. The promoters took their phones from the invitees and they all got hooked on the mantra of 5 times cheaper, 5 times faster, which Sarah realises is creating brand loyalty at or targeting minors
who are more susceptible.
That's whole sort of did we discuss this last week? So 5 times what? Is it effectively just like 5 shots of, say, vodka in the one drink?
Or equivalent, I guess, yeah.
I mean, people can do that if they want. They can go and pour themselves 5 shots, buy a bottle of vodka, mix it with Red Bull, and there you go.
Yeah.
I don't think there's some sort of secret ingredient here.
Also, 5 shots is not going to make you lose your mind and start jumping off of trains and stuff.
Not at all. Although, if you have 2 cans of it, then you suddenly get 10 shots in your system within... You would be, if you're not used to drinking, or if you're not used to drinking spirits, and you do drink 5 shots in the space of, 5 minutes.
They were treating this episode that you take 1 mouthful and suddenly you no longer have control of your faculties.
They're treating this like crack cocaine.
You're pissing yourself and stuff.
Yeah, it's complete nonsense. You mean you'd be quite quickly...
I think they're treating it as worse than cocaine. They're treating it like it's heroin or something, where as soon as you take it, that's you.
I said crack cocaine.
Oh, okay, sorry, yes. I apologise.
All that would happen here is you would be quite drunk quite quick and you might throw up or fall down because you're a bit drunk. But alcohol doesn't... I have never been so out of my mind. I've been drunk, very, very drunk. I've fallen and collapsed many times with a drink when I was a youngster. I have never wanted to throw myself out of cars or any of this sort of stuff.
No.
I wanted to go to sleep and vomit.
Those are the 2 main things.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kennedy's dad brings them back down to reality by saying that this evidence may be great for them, but they're not getting it from her unless the DA backs off.
And so Olympia tells him that this is being worked on. And indeed, Madeline is working on this as she meets with in the morning Lydia at her mansion.
You have a gorgeous home, Mrs. Reed.
I used to think so. Now it's just filled with ghosts. The place violated her homework. The piano she played.
Gives me absolutely no pleasure to tell you I'm also a member of the worst club on earth.
I'm sorry. I pressured Violet into joining the sorority.
Can't blame yourself.
I can't not. My Chi Sigma Pi sisters were my lifelong friends. One of Violet's killed her.
And I know you're angry with Kennedy, but she's not the responsible party. And if you could tell the DA...
No, stop. You do not get to tell me who to hold responsible or how to grieve. My daughter would be alive if not for Kennedy.
I know,
And nothing. If it were your child, wouldn't you want someone held responsible? Not a drink, a person who made a decision? You need to leave.
I'm sure I've said this before, but I despise all that fraternity stuff, that my Chi Spy Y Jai. We don't have that here, and it is always, because I remember as a kid like watching all American movies and not understanding what it was.
Yeah.
Recently, the other day, I watched Night of the Creeps with my son, and they had that as well. And it's pledging week, or whatever it is, and they're just obnoxious arses.
Monsters University.
Yeah, you got a different point of reference from me. I'm thinking of Animal House and what have you. To me, it just seems it's one of these things you're trying to make yourself sound sophisticated and educated. It's like a nouveau riche type thing. You know, the universities over there are only like 100 years old.
Yeah, so trying to say stories.
Yes, exactly. Look how distinguished we are. There you go. The guy who paid for your university only died 10 years ago. You're not having this, we're Greek. No, you're not.
Yeah. Madeline should surely be recognising herself in Lydia here.
Well, she is, yeah. That's the whole point, yeah.
Do you think she is?
Yeah.
I don't know if Madeline's seen it.
No, I think she does.
Okay.
In the meeting room.
Tucker is not impressed to learn that Kennedy will not be testifying. However, he's asked to tell his story honestly, but 10% differently.
Yes, he's got to admit that he wanted to get drunk, but also wanted still to be able to make choices, an option which was removed by Slamm'd.
This makes him sound ridiculous.
It's
like, okay, we'll persuade the libertarian, but we've lost the other 11 who think you're an idiot.
Yeah, because the thing is, everyone knows when you get drunk, you make bad decisions. It inhibits your ability to...
It's part of the reason for getting drunk for some people.
So you can't have it both ways. You can't get drunk and then still be...
He had an option to maintain his choices. Don't get drunk or drink at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, Shae's coaching him, and while she's doing that, we head over to the U3 office where the team are hopeful that one of the kids snuck a phone into this high school warehouse party.
Yeah, I think as well that Sarah asks Billy if he has decided to show some self-respect and end it with Simone.
He claims that he has because she snaked the office, or tried to snake the office from him, and this was a big red flag. And he also wants Sarah to admit that she is kidding herself on about this open relationship thing and will hate it, and her therapist will not have the capacity to deal with it.
I think that's 100% spot on.
Sarah's response is good though. She says he has no idea how much capacity her therapist has for her nonsense.
At this point, Olympia enters, and they have to admit they've made little progress on who was behind the party, as they were careful not to leave a trail. However, Olympia thinks this is good news, as it means that the care they were taking, the lack of a trail, means that we're up to some... It's a little bit like when you dust for prints and there's none.
It means someone was
cleaning up,
them.
yes.
In court, Elijah is leading Tucker through his evidence, but in cross, Slamm'd are able to introduce a video, which I didn't think had any evidential value whatsoever, of
very
him
little.
At the end of a football game agreeing with someone who says, let's get so blitzed we don't remember tomorrow.
And I think it's back in his high school days.
Yes.
Yeah, so he's a kid. They win some state, whatever it is, championship. There's 5 or 6 of them in this video. One other guy shouts, yeah, let's, as you say, let's get drunk, so drunk we don't remember tomorrow. And all he does is, along with the rest of them, shout, yay.
Even if it was him that said that, the fact he wanted to get drunk one time in high school.
Yeah.
How is that in any way relevant?
Well, I mean, what I would say is it's certainly not the slam dunk. It's not the...
Slam's dunk.
The slam dunk, yeah. I don't think... It might just be a piece of evidence that breaks the camel's back, as it were, if you're on the fence.
I suppose the whole thing they're trying to make him feel awkward, and they're trying to undermine him as a... The plaintiff's case is that this guy is a reasonable person who drinks a little bit, but likes to remain in control. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to undermine that by saying, no, he's the kind of guy who just drinks until he can't see anymore. Yeah,
but again, see, this is what I've always go back to this. The type of person who wants to be in control does not drink a can of Slamm'd.
Yeah, I think they're just putting the idea in the jury's mind that you can't trust this guy. He's not what he says he is.
Mm. And during this period, we find out how his life was turned upside down. So the day before, he was his first member of his family to go to college. The day after it, he is now in a wheelchair for the rest of his life, and he's not going to be the sporting hero. But as this evidence, this video's played, we see Juror 32 sort of wryly smirking and taking a note of this. So it obviously has had the effect that the defence were looking for.
Yes. Back in the office, we learned that Elijah did a redirect where he asked further questions. We don't get to see what he was asked or what was said, but they don't think that it would be enough to persuade Juror 32.
No, the mood is very sombre.
They're very focused on this one guy. They don't need 100% of the jury, right?
I don't know. I said that before. I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, anyway.
But Sarah does have something.
Yes, they think they have the start of something anyway.
What's that?
They've got 3 pictures which show that the Slamm'd was available at this party before it was on the market.
Yes. And Billy points out that Slamm'd listed many parties or for discovery, but not this particular one with the underagers.
However, Elijah does not think they can persuade the court to allow this as new evidence.
Yeah, I think Olympia wants to go to the judge with these pictures and for this to be brought to court.
At this point, we've got a hardened Madeline, I think, who's not willing to... I think, in fact, she's probably actively avoiding self-introspection on the points.
Yeah, okay, so what happens is Elijah doesn't think that they've got enough to link Slamm'd to this, but Olympia states that that's because they're hiding evidence. And how does Madeline respond?
She says that's the epitome of evil.
That's an exaggeration, isn't it?
Well, it is, but I think the problem that she's got here is she's all defensive now because Betsy had to go at her, and because she's been talking to Lydia, she's now trying to, in her mind, sort out her own position, and she's outwardly not yet ready to accept that she might have been wrong.
She says they cannot be allowed to get away with it, and Olympia agrees and calls the judge.
In the Kingston mansion, Betsy asks Madeline whether she actually cares about this case anyway.
Yeah, this gets her hackles up. Madeline is very offended and says, yeah, she does. A girl has died and the product is dangerous. Betsy then takes a breath and accepts that she should have called Madeline about Ellie.
Before justifying not calling her.
Yes, but says it was, just to give her some breathing space after. I mean, she's 19 as well. This is the whole thing. I understand Madeline's position, obviously.
It's a really difficult situation that Betsy was put in. Her niece, who is a heroin addict, came out of rehab and asked her not to call her parents because she needed some time. As a 19-year-old adult. And Betsy obviously would have wanted to call Madeline immediately and say, you don't need to worry about her. She's out of rehab, but she's with me and she's safe. But she knows that if she does that, Madeline and Edwin will show up and haul Ellie away. And she wants to protect Ellie. And it's an impossible situation. There was no right thing to do.
Madeline doesn't like that she, as you say, is still trying to justify these actions as she has apparently no experience of addiction. However, Betsy sneers at this and reminds him of what?
Yeah, I didn't really understand everything Betsy said here.
Okay,
so they're talking about the mother.
Alcoholic mother, they both had.
And Madeline's take is that when she threatened to take Betsy to college with her if the mother didn't stop drinking, that the mother did stop drinking and therefore Betsy wasn't affected after Madeline left by this alcoholism.
Well, firstly she says she stopped drinking when Betsy was 5.
Okay.
That's well before college age, obviously.
Yeah, but I think there's a gap between Betsy and Madeline.
So what's your problem?
So my problem is Betsy then says that she became addicted to baking and Betsy, which is parenting?
No, she says baking and eating.
And also to Betsy. So she wouldn't leave her alone. She wouldn't let her out of her sight.
Okay.
She obsessed about her.
Yes. So there's a touch of what I've noted here. There's a touch of the It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay.
Where
it's black and white.
You've not seen it, have you not? Okay. So the main character, George, he puts everyone else first. He's always wanting to go off to the big city or whatever it is, or make a life for himself somewhere else. He's in a small town.
Yep.
But something always happens and he remains behind. Everyone else goes away and becomes successful doing whatever they're doing. And every time he feels a responsibility for something and he stays behind. Okay. And he's got that sort of, not necessarily bitterness, but regret of a life not fulfilled, I suppose.
Okay.
And I think that's what she's got here. So what else do we find out?
That's not the movie where he shoots the dog at the end, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We find out that Madeline went to college and although their mother did stop drinking, she then became addicted, as you said, to baking and eating, but also to Betsy and obsessed over, wouldn't let her go to college or didn't want her to go to college when she had the opportunity, which Madeline didn't know about.
Yeah, so rather than go to Georgia State, she stayed to look after the mother.
This is interesting to me. So this tells me that they actually were from Georgia, where Shae went looking for information previously. So there's probably threads of truth.
Yeah, and that's where the original Matlock was based.
Okay. Betsy makes the connection between their mother's obsessions, the drinking and the baking and stuff, Ellie's opioid addiction, and Madeline's relentless pursuit of inverted commas, justice.
I also like the fact as well that she did sort of hammer it home as well that Madeline went away for this sort of big hotshot career, making it rain, I think.
Hence all the big houses and stuff.
Yeah, but accepts that she made her own choice. So she's not...
She has responsibility, but And she also makes the point that even though Madeline says her situation is different, it's not that different.
No, she very perceptively points out that people deal with pain in different ways.
Yeah, I wrote in the quote, it's probably worth going through the whole
the
line that she says, because it's quite a good one, and we don't have a clip of it. So she says, do you think about it every day? Lie in order to do it? Sacrifice relationships? The thing is, you've got to feel pain, because eventually the distractions stop working. They either wear out or you do.
So she's describing how people cope with or addictions, and
it's the same for Madeline. She's grieving her daughter, and this is her way of dealing with it, but it's not going
healthy.
to work. Yeah.
This whole relationship is a fantastic reflection of how we look at the show and how, obviously, that's how it's been written now.
Yes, you can tell that it's been fully thought through, which is good. This next part of the scene is, I think, my favourite bit of the episode.
Okay.
So Madeline gets a text from Olympia, presumably, saying that the hearing was lost, the new evidence can't be introduced, and Bitsy brilliantly does what Madeline's been doing all...
Yes, she demonstrates that she is far smarter than her Bitsy homely presentation or image would...
Which surely Madeline should have appreciated from the fact that she was able to use these stories throughout the season so far to make important key points.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So tell me about this pie competition.
Cindy Shapiro, when she was younger, entered a pie baking, or tried to enter a pie baking contest in the local area, but was ruled, I think, ineligible, and she appealed.
Missed the deadline.
Yeah, she missed the deadline. So she appealed to the mayor or whoever and wasn't able to get her pie into the contest and didn't win it. Another pie won it that wasn't very good. So an aggrieved Cindy Shapiro sent her pie to the editor of the local paper, who ate the pie and wrote about the pie in the press. And to this day, people will swear that Cindy won that competition, even though she actually didn't.
And they both nod together as they agree Madeline has to deliver the pie elsewhere. And she remarks that Itsy Bitsy is actually pretty smart. And as you say, one of my favourite scenes of the show so far.
Back at the Reed house, Madeline delivers the pie.
Yes, in the form of the video.
Again, though, with a hint of a lack of self-awareness.
There's a bit of emotional manipulation here, I think.
So she is presenting the case to Lydia in the way that Bitsy's just presented her own case to her. But no, she's not made... It almost seems to me that she's not making this connection yet. But anyway, she points out to Lydia that she needs to blame the right people, and that Slamm'd targeted Kennedy since high school, marketing to her as a minor and hiding the evidence. And that although it's not a criminal case at this point, the money will stop them, like a judgment against them will stop what they're doing, and criminal cases can follow.
Obviously, Olympia is delighted to hear this news and wants Kennedy on the stand as a first step. And there's more good news.
Yes, Lydia is mad and motivated to help them figure out who it is at Slamm'd that's been lying. So apparently they think Slamm'd are manipulating maybe regulations or marketing. Who knows? Yeah.
Also, the twosome are close to getting information from the police in Connecticut who broke up one of these parties.
Yes, Billy's sister is going to hook them up with the local PD, and at this point, Madeline gets a text.
Further positive news.
Edwin has found out that the shredding room wasn't a shredding room previously.
And so, therefore, the documents may still exist. Olympia asks about this text, and again, Madeline decides to lie. And
she's digging too deep here.
Says Alfie is better and loved using the car. This will become an obvious lie if
100% Olympia's going to find out she didn't get a car for Alfie.
There's no need for it. This is a weakness in the writing.
Madeline can cover that by saying that she didn't want to use the car and she just said that she had because she didn't want Olympia to go on about it. But she's going to burn a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Elijah arrives, however, to deflate everybody with some terrible news.
What's that?
Tucker has accepted a settlement and is out.
Yeah, 100k. They no longer have a lead plaintiff, and so they all turn to Olympia for their next move. But this is shook her to her core, and she hurries out in quite the state. And Madeline eventually finds her, drowning her sorrows in her original office.
How'd you know I'd be in my old office?
Oh, I think I know you pretty well by now. Plus, I looked at 6 other places first.
As always, appreciate the honesty. Scotch? 2 years of work down the drain. The partner race.
It's not over.
Trust me, it's over. For 2 years, I've been doing these pro bono cases and I've been saying, wait for Slam. Just wait for Slam.
Oh, so? You regroup?
There's no regrouping. Julian gets partner, I leave. But wherever I end up, you're my first hire. If you want to come with, of course. What?
Oh, it's just embarrassing. In my bladder, when you turn 76, every liquid heads for the exit. But don't you move, because when I come back, we're going to figure this out and we're going to make a plan. You got me?
Gotcha.
Stealing your idea again.
Yeah, Olympia setting up our exact proposal for season 2.
I think we should have some sort of story credit, not written by...
No, but...
Executive story editor
or something.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
It could be executive producer credits, because if you do a couple of shows with that, you get a AGA or whatever it is.
SAG-AFTRA.
Madeline makes this excuse to leave. I don't understand why she didn't just go and do whatever she has to do before she found Olympia.
Who knows?
I have a theory.
What's that?
That she wasn't looking for Olympia. She was following her trail, and Olympia just happened to be in that room.
Quite harsh, because she knew her friend was upset.
Well, yeah, maybe. But then why is she doing this? She shouldn't have to leave at this point. She could have stayed for another half hour and then left.
Anyway, over in the U3 office, Billy finds one of his naughty notes inviting him to the closet.
He heads there very quickly.
He sprints over there, Usain Bolt style.
Yes, but he is surprised to find in the darkness a different lady waiting for him.
It's a furious Sarah.
Is she furious though?
Annoyed that he's been lying to her.
Yeah.
And she listens as he is honest and I like this. He says, yeah, I did think about splitting up with Hot Simone, but then I decided, I quite like to keep doing what I'm doing with her. I mean, effectively, that's what he said.
The two of them admit that they are each hooked on somebody else who's not good for them, but will accept that for one another and support each the other. Sarah, though, is disgusted by Billy's next move.
I'm impressed. High five.
He sends a text to Simone and points out to Sarah that he's in the closet now anyway. He might as well take advantage of it.
Go on, beat it you.
In the corridor upstairs, downstairs, upstairs, wherever they are, we hear Alfie, who maybe gets a fee for his voice being used in this episode. Who knows? He tells Madeline about the different rooms. 2197 used to be a coffee bar, and 2511 is a woman's toilet.
And this is the room that she is in, this woman's bathroom, and it's always been for women. So I think she checks to make sure it wasn't the men's at one point.
So why is Julian going into a women's toilet? Is he trans?
You think that? So you're still...
they're like these trans people trying to get into women's toilets?
You're still convinced it's Julian then?
Well, let's find out from a fantasy sequence.
I mean, it's definitely not Olympia. It can't be at this point. There's still 3 episodes, 4 episodes to go.
For us to be solved, but yes.
Yeah, so this devastating news triggers a new theory flashback, which shows Olympia as the villain of the piece.
This is so fortuitous, though. So the theory here is that it wasn't Julian who took the document. It was Olympia, who happened to have Julian's past, which happened to be the past that Madeline got the information from.
It only would be one pass, yeah. So they lived, as she says, they lived together. It's like a hotel room. It doesn't say anything on it. She's picked it up.
If she'd actually used the right pass, then when Madeline stole Julian's pass, it would have shown he didn't take the document.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, yes, so as you say, this explanation from Fantasy Olympia is that Madeline has to wake up, smell the coffee. It was her. It could only have been her.
The Redditor, i.e. Belvin, named 3 people, and she is the only one that would have spent any time in the women's bathroom.
Surely Belvin would have known who it was that took the document.
She doesn't have the security. No, she wouldn't.
She would have been there and seen them take it out.
No, she wouldn't know at the time. They'll be in and out there all the time signing for documents.
Maybe. Anyhow, Olympia challenges.
She taunts her.
Yes. Well, Fantasy Olympia, we should say.
Yes.
It says, find out where this person with the documents ended up.
Yeah, the one that caused Ellie's death. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The taunting.
So Madeline follows the tour of the rooms and ends up back where she started, at Olympia's old office.
And she sees the real Olympia sitting there asking her what her plan is now.
And that's the cliffhanger that we end on.
She's got to smash her face in with a bottle. I think that's her plan
Yes,
now.
how dare you murder my daughter
With your...
after the fact?
Oh, it's been a long episode so far, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Well, let's sum up by saying Bitsy's right about everything. It's still too early to think that Madeline solved what's going on.
It's definitely not Olympia.
It's definitely not Olympia. And I still think it doesn't matter who it was. Get over it.
Well, no, I mean, the show itself is saying that just now.
Yeah. Did you like the technique they used with this fantasy sequence? It's another new...
As long as these things aren't overused, I think they work well, yeah. Do
you think it's better that they've used a lot of different techniques through the season rather than using the same ones more often?
Yes, that's what I just said, as long as you don't overuse it.
Well, there's been overused in multiple... Anyway, let's sum up. The case that featured in this episode was the start of the class action against the makers of Slamm'd. The case suffered a blow when the named plaintiff accepted a settlement and dropped out, leaving things looking good for the defence, but the case continues.
Mm-hmm.
You got any trivia to rattle off?
I have no trivia, so we'll just do some of the sort of standard production information. Kat Coiro was the director again, and we have a returning writer in Jeffrey Lieber. This is his second of two. Rabbit and the Hawk was his first.
Okay.
We obviously recognised Bitsy.
Yeah, we talked about it briefly last week from Airplane.
Yes, born on the 15th of June 1955 in Cincinnati. You will have, as you say, seen her in Airplane, Airplane 2, Family Guy, Black Monday, Trial and Error, Malcolm in the Middle, Freddie Got Fingered, Norm, Reunited, Princesses, and What About Bob, amongst many other things. And you'll also be familiar, I think, with Lydia.
From Scream.
Yeah, Marley Shelton, born in LA in 1974 on the 12th of April. This is her first of 3 Matlocks. She was, as you say, in Scream 4 and Scream 5, but she was just called Scream again.
Yes.
1923, Manhunt, Rise, The Lottery, Harry's Law with Kathy Bates, 11th Hour, Death Proof, Planet Terror, Grindhouse, Sin City, Never Been Kissed, and Nixon. She is married to producer Beau Flynn. Her high school prom date was her boyfriend at the time, Buffy the Vampire Slayer's Nicholas Brendan. Don't know who that is, never watched it.
Oh, he's a controversial character.
Character or person?
No, the actor is a controversial guy, yeah.
Okay, sounds ominous, sounds Me Too-ish.
That's worth looking up.
Okay, well, we'll do that in our own time.
Yeah.
She is also the sister of actor Samantha. Defence counsel Clara Clark was played by Danny Deete. D-E-E-T-E? Deete?
Deete, I would say.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, she's been in Ozark, based on a true story, Dark Matter, VHS 1985, Tulsa King, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, The Sinner, and Ambitions. Prior to acting, she worked in the criminal justice field.
Oh, that's typecast.
Yes. Now, I've got a problem here. Tucker, indeed. So, I thought, what Tucker's been up to? Who is he? Where have I seen him from
he did
before?
Look familiar.
Well, maybe, but there is no credit on IMDb for him. And I've checked, don't worry, I've checked the full listing, so it's not uncredited. He's not down at the bottom. Can I suggest that you, Ian, you ask Kat Coiro or Jenny Snyder-Urman?
Okay.
One of the two should know. But why is this guy? I mean, I'm no actor, as you know, as you may have guessed. But if I was...
IMDb says.
Well, that's true, actually. Yeah, I've got more credits than him. So, why is he not on IMDb for this role as a fairly prominent speaking part? It's unheard of. These people don't want to be credited for their work.
Doesn't make sense.
Makes no sense. Will you do that for me? And will you tweet at or whatever, however you can Instagram them, Snapchat them, do whatever to try and find out what the situation is.
You'll literally have to remind me when I'm in front of a device. That
I'll do that later. Right, okay. Is that us?
I believe it is.
What have we got next week?
Next week, Olympia tries to secure victory in the Slamm'd case as judgment looms in game face.
Until then,
cheerio.
Bye-bye.